everybody, today I'm here in Ridgeline Service and we're going to be doing a Tech Tuesday. Now this series is going to be all about maintenance that you should be doing on your bike, and we're going to help you be able to do that at home, or if you're too lazy, you can obviously always bring it to Joseph. He is the bike wizard, and since this is the first Tech Tuesday, I wanted to introduce Joseph. He is the owner of Ridgeline Bike Service. This amazing bike shop. I mean, your service is everything for you.
It is.
And anybody who races in the area knows if you want your bike tuned for a race, you bring it to Joseph. He's been in business here for 8 years, but he's been wrenching on bikes since he's 15. And he's gonna be showing us today how to do a lower leg service on this Lyric Ultimate. And well, Joseph, take it away.
All right. So first thing you're gonna wanna do when you get going on a service is you wanna get everything clean. So we still got a little bit of dirt on here, so we're gonna cut away, get this cleaned up so we don't get any contaminants from any of the dirt from the headset or dust from the mud guard, anything like that. We also got quite a bit of gunk built up because this thing is very desperate for a rebuild.
Sorry, that's my fault. Exit stage right.
Wouldn't that be stage left? All right, so from left to right, all the products we're gonna need for this rebuild, tools. Obviously, we're gonna need our dust wipers. These are just standard RockShox 35mm seal kit for Pike / Lyric. Got your foam rings, your sag meter, whatever you wanna call that, just sag O-ring.
It's the hair scrunchie.
Yeah, the air scrunchie. We got some 0830 RockShox suspension fluid for the lower leg bath. And we've got some various seals and parts for your air spring assembly. I generally use like a small tire lever, such as this one's kind of got a smoother edge for prying out the old seals, dental picks for pulling out various O-rings and clips and springs and whatnot to replace. Torque wrench, we're going to want to set our foot nuts on the fork to 7.3 Newton meters. When we put it all back together, seal press 5mm for just doing stuff with the foot nuts before we actually have to torque them. Also, very important, you're going to want to use a lint-free paper towel such as this for cleaning everything up. You don't want to get any contamination of lint fibers, dust. You want to prevent that as much as possible. It's impossible to keep it all out, but the more you keep out with doing little things like that, the better your suspension's going to feel.
Now, people may disregard that last item, but you know, I know from personal experience that actually could really affect the performance of the fork. I believe it was this fork exactly, right? That came in and it had a tiny, tiny, tiny little hair, so small you could barely even see it, in between the positive and negative air spring, and it really affected the performance.
Yeah, so basically there was a hair when this fork first came from the factory. It's actually this seal. It sits on a piston inside your fork, and it was literally just laying right over the edge, and it was allowing air from the positive spring to intermix with your negative air spring assembly, and it was causing the fork to do some funky stuff. So I took it apart, got that hair out of there, and started working. All right, so the first step, obviously, you're gonna wanna get your foot nuts up where you can see them. You're also gonna wanna get a little Allen key for this guy right here, 2.5mm if I remember correctly. You're just gonna loosen that guy off a little bit. It's gonna come right out. There's a little water in there, so you wanna, after washing the fork in preparation, you wanna make sure everything's dry before putting it back in. And I'm gonna go ahead and just dry this area. It's just a little pocket area that just likes to hold a little water. So before I actually open it up, again, contaminants, that's your biggest thing with doing anything with suspension. You wanna just eliminate that as much as possible. So we're gonna go ahead and grab these, loosen them off. That one's on there snug. Oh, sticky. I usually loosen them off till there's a little bit of space right there, maybe 3-4 millimeters. I usually use a like a plastic end of one of these Park Tool hammers, but mine has had a better day and is gone right now. So temporarily, I'm going to do this. I'm just gonna put this into this bolt and give it a little tap.
So what were you using to pound on there?
This is just a cut off broken Allen key. I'd rather, if I'm gonna do damage to something, I'd rather it be the bolt than the fork itself. I'd normally just use the plastic end of this and just go directly on the bolt, just gently. You don't want to be like wailing on it. It's just going to usually take a couple of quick little taps. The next thing I'm going to do is I'm going to take the lower legs off. Everything should be popped loose, should drop off pretty easily. Just going to want to make sure that your oil catch or whatever you're using to capture that oil is lined up nicely. And I usually just put my hand here, kind of stabilize here, and just kind of push down. Usually doesn't take much force to get it to come off because you already tapped them. That is some nasty stuff coming out of there. Like, that's some of the worst oil I've seen come out of a fork.
Ouch. I take offense to that, Joseph.
Well, how long has it been since you've come to see me for this fork?
It's been too long, Joe. It's been too long.
It's been way too long. That doesn't even look like oil anymore. I don't know what that looks like. You're gonna want to use some sort of cleaner. So what I use here is Maxima Suspension Clean. You want to be really careful which degreasers and cleaners you use on your suspension because certain chemicals don't get along with seals very well. This stuff, I've never had a problem with it. It's actually designed to work around suspension products. And Maxima is actually the company that makes oils for Fox, RockShox. I think they do them for Manitou as well. So these guys they know what they're doing as far as chemicals to put into what, so that they get along. So these guys are really good. Cannot say enough good things about Maxima. Quick little plug there. So yeah, now we got the lower legs off. We're gonna start cleaning out some of that nasty milk colored something that came out of this fork. I don't think
chocolate milk, Joe.
It's chocolate milk. All right, so we removed the chocolate milk from this fork. So now we're gonna start cleaning the rest of that out. I always spray a little bit of this into the lower legs, let that start draining. I usually set this while I'm doing some work on the stanchions. I set this on my bench, usually put a rag underneath it to just keep from making a big mess right here. So we're gonna go back over to here, start cleaning some stuff. Again, just spraying everything down, getting that stuff flowing off of there. You don't wanna have any more chocolate milk in your fork when you're done doing this. Lint-free rag here, start wiping everything down. I usually check the function of the damper, everything feels good there. So we're gonna be able to just do a basic surface on this, which is what we were wanting to do in this video anyways. But you wanna check your damper, and if you grab your damper and you don't feel any like resistance as you push up on it, on the Lyric and on the Pike, then you've got a problem and you're gonna have to do a full damper overhaul. Maybe we'll do that in another video some other time, but for now we're just doing a lower leg. And that's it. So you got this nice and clean. This is pretty much ready to go. So now we're just gonna put our dust seals in and get our oil prepped and get it put together. All right, so the next thing we're gonna do here is we're gonna get our tire lever in here. And that one came out nice and with some enthusiasm. And then this one, oops, that one did too. And then another thing that can happen, this is actually a perfect example, something that happens sometimes is these dust wipers actually get kind of stuck in there. So you want to be careful doing this. I usually use a dental pick and kind of peel at them a little bit and hope that they all come up because this thing is like stuck in there good. And if it gets really bad, isopropyl alcohol and just a rag and just some patience is what you're gonna have to do to get it out of there. Looks like we might luck out on this one. Hey, I mean, the cool thing about this video is like most of the videos that are out there on service, you see a pristine fork getting a rebuild and it doesn't give you any of this real world kind of stuff. You can see it's kind of sticking in there. So we're gonna come in, I'll show you in a few minutes how we get that out, but I'm gonna get as much of this out in the meantime as I can. And then I'll show you how to get the foam that's actually sticking in there out. All right, so you can see on this side where we had the leaking problem, all this foam is just stuck in here and it's just like not wanting to come out. A lot of mud and just junk that's in there. I mean, that thing is just done. So
compared to the other side,
this side looks clean. This is what it's usually gonna look like when you take it apart. It's usually gonna be pretty clean, maybe a little dirty oil in there, and that's gonna be really easy to just kind of wipe out, and it's gonna look pretty good right when you're done. So with this, I'm gonna use Simple Green and water 50-50 mixture and soak it, and then I'm gonna come back a little bit later with my dental pick and just start scraping away at that stuff and just till it's gone, and then polish it up, and then put our new seals in. Now that this has been soaking for a while, I'm gonna grab a dental pick and just kind of start scraping. And you want to hold it not upright like that because you don't want to scrape and have some of that foam chunks drop into your lower leg. So we're just going to start just scraping at this for a while. Got to take some patience, but you can see it's starting to come up right there. There's a little stubborn piece right there. It's coming up a little bit at a time, and you just got to be patient with it. Don't like try to force it. Don't dig in with the dental pick. Just kind of scrape the edges back and forth until it all comes out of there. Look at that, it's starting to look polished in there and starting to look normal again. So we're just about ready to do the final polish here and clean it all out, degrease it, and we'll press our seals. All right, so at this point, this is where we would do an air spring service if the fork needed it. In this case, this fork is not leaking any air, having any problems, so we're gonna go ahead and leave it for today. We're gonna do an air spring service in another video soon. And we'll also do some damper stuff maybe in another video. This is also the point where you do some damper service if you're going to do that. But today we're just doing a lower leg, so we're gonna get on with it. All right, so we're gonna go ahead and get our dust wipers in. So first thing I'm gonna do is I'm gonna get some of our 0830, the bath oil that we're gonna be using in this fork. Be sure to check with the specifications for your fork exactly what type of bath oil the manufacturer recommends. For today's purpose, we're doing a RockShox Lyrics. So it's using 0830, and I'm just gonna take these foam rings and I'm gonna soak them in a little bit of this, this oil here. So I always hook it with my dental pick here, so that way I don't lose it in there, because that's a bad day. And we're just gonna kind of tip that thing back till we see that it's fully soaked. And I kind of use the pick a little bit to just gently move it around in there. And once I see that it's fully soaked, then I go ahead and put it into the fork. And we're gonna do that again for the other side, and then I'll show you the seal pressing process. For pressing the seal, I'm gonna go ahead and take this little metal ring or metal spring off of here, and I'm gonna put that aside for now. And I'm gonna get a little bit of slick honey, or you're gonna use SRAM dynamic seal grease, one or the other. Both work just fine. You're gonna put an ultra thin layer of grease around the circumference outer edge of this seal here, just to help it kind of go in a little easier. That's about it. And then any extra grease on your hand here is great to use for lotion at this point. Actually, just kidding. Just put it back into your jar. That's a better way to do it. I do not recommend using that for lotion, just kidding. All right, so now got our seal press here, got our lower legs, and biggest thing with this is you want to try to make sure it goes in straight. So right now it's definitely not starting off that way, so just gonna do a little bit of an adjustment here and get our seal press on top. I usually press down pretty firmly. It's gonna kind of, it might start just a hair crooked, but just make sure you're kind of compensating for that and push it on in there. All right, so now that we got them pressed in, you're just gonna wanna take a quick check, make sure they're really nice and straight. And then the other thing I like to do is you can see the factory installed grease in there. I usually just spread that just a little bit with my finger before installing them, just so you don't have grease bunched up in all the places you don't need. And it just looks cool when you do it. Just looks all nice and even and perfect, and it satisfies my OCD. So in this particular fork, we're gonna be using, again, 0830, we're gonna be using 10 cc's or 10 milliliters on both sides, torquing our nuts to 7.3 Newton meters. But before we get that going, we're gonna put our little metal ring that we took off of our seal when we pressed it, and our sag O-ring. We're gonna go ahead and put that up on here. Very important step. I don't even wanna mention how many times I forgot to put these metal rings on, put the lower legs on, get the oil in, and then be like, oh dang, I forgot to do it. So it is pretty important. I use the sag ring, oops, wrong grease. I use the sag ring to hold the metal ring on one side in place while I slide the lowers on. On the other side, I just put a little tiny dab of slick honey right there to just kind of hold it in place.
Ooh, that's a trick.
And then, yeah, so we're just gonna go ahead and slide these guys on. Just wanna make sure it's kind of going even. Make sure none of the lips of the seals kind of snag and go underneath. So you're gonna do just some finagling, some wiggling, and it'll eventually go on. And sliding back and forth, wiggling around is usually what it takes. And just be patient with it. So, I mean, I guess it's actually good it's being stubborn with me on camera right now, because the biggest thing I cannot stress here enough is just, you gotta be patient. You gotta just take your time. You can see on that right stanchion, sometimes you can kind of help it along with your finger a little bit. Oh, I just took it all the way off, but at least it didn't curl over. Some forks are gonna be easier than others. There we go. Before you do anything else, right after you put it on, you're just gonna wanna go run your finger along the edge here. Just make sure everything feels nice and even, which it does in this case, so we're good to go. So I'm gonna go ahead and snap our, that little metal spring into place. And you usually can do it with your finger. If you need a little bit of help, you can reach for one of your dental picks to kind of reach back in that hard area and snap it into place. The other reason you want to do this step right here, right now, is it's easier to feel if something is not quite right. Now we're at the point where we're gonna fill with some oil here. So I always take the syringe apart, and like I see some oil here, could have some dust stuck to it, whatnot. So since we're doing finishing work, this is also where I switch to a new towel and make sure it's really clean. I look at it, I don't see any old oil or dirt or anything. Set that down there for a minute. Then I'm gonna clean this up here. Make sure this looks really good and clean. No contaminants, no grease, no stains, no nothing like that. This is a syringe that I just got at a feed store, actually. It's really awesome when I walk into the feed store and I say, I want to order up 25 syringes. They look at me funny for a minute, and then they ask me what I'm using them for, and I'm like, of course, I want to shoot up some drugs. But no, seriously, rebuilding forks. Back to scheduled programming. Just put a little bit of grease on this plunger here, just to make it a little easier to pull up the fluid, push it in, that kind of thing. We're gonna go ahead and grab our oil, 10 cc's. Go ahead and double check with RockShox's spec sheets, owner's manual, whatever you want to do to double check, make sure you're getting the right amount of the right fluid in your fork, because it's going to vary depending on model, year, version. I know some pikes only require like 5 cc's, some require as much as like 25. So just double check what you got to do in your fork and then do it. So we got our oil in there. I'm going to go ahead and set my torque wrench here. This is just a Park Tool TW-5. We're going to set it to 7.3. That's 7 on the dot. 7.3. So we're going to go ahead and push this guy down here. There's that. We got both of the threads right just beneath the foot here. You can see. You can get in there. You just want to make sure you want to put your damper side on the correct sides, the bigger one around. It's got the indents for your clicks for your rebound dampening adjustment. We're gonna go ahead and get that guy in here, and our air spring bolt here. We got this thing set. Also, I don't know if you've worked with torque wrenches in the past, but you want to make sure that after you are done using them, you want to make sure that they are detensioned so you don't stretch out the spring in them. All right, so now at this point we've got our foot nuts on. They're torqued to 7.3 Newton meters. Just gonna come in here. I've already kind of cleaned up these bolts, but I want to just clean them up really, really good again. Try to prevent any buildup happening on the bottom of this fork, any dust buildup. Also, I've got the actual knob off here, and I'm gonna really clean that up. Look for any like excess oil in this thing. You'll see like oil kind of pooling up in the bottom there. When you take it off or when you put it on, you want to just double check there's nothing pooling up down there. That is an indication that you might have a leak. I always check when I take it apart, and I check when I put it back together, just to be on the safe side. Next thing I'm going to do is I'm going to grab a little bit of grease. This is only time on a fork I'm not going to use slick honey. I just want to put a little bit on this little plate here, so it's nice and smooth, and those indents are well defined. It's like, was that a click or was that dirt? We don't want that. And again, 2.5 millimeter Allen key. You can key this particular one any way you want. You're just gonna slide it in, and oh, that little 2.5 millimeter Allen key just tightens up a little notch right there that just goes into this groove. So there's no real particular way that it has to go on. Sometimes to get it on, you're just gonna have to loosen it up just a fuzz, and then you'll feel it kind of settle in. And you're just gonna tighten this thing up. And you don't want to put much torque on this thing, just to starting to have a little bit of resistance. Give it a quick little twist, move it around a little bit, make sure everything's functioning good. And at this point, you're ready to put it back on the bike and go shred. So
So before we go, Joseph, I just wanted to ask you two more questions, and that is, what are the price of the consumable items and some of the tools that somebody would need to do this service at home?
All right, so first thing, obviously dust wipers. You're gonna have to have that. Depending on the fork you have, it's probably gonna be about 25, 30 bucks roughly. And then your oil to get like a smaller little thing of like 0830, you're probably looking at about 10, 15 bucks. Again, depends on what your local shop is charging for that, or if you're ordering it online, whatever you're doing there. Those are just rough ballpark prices for your consumables. As far as tools, I mean, 5mm Allen key, I mean, you should have that in your garage already as a biker.
Should have it on your bike.
Yeah, you should be carrying one with you. So I'm not gonna really count that. The only real special tool I used here was seal drivers and torque wrench. That's probably not something you're gonna have in your garage. I mean, torque wrench maybe, but the torque wrench I was using was the Park Tool TW-5. That torque wrench is retailing for about 110, 120, if I remember correctly off the top of my head.
That's got a pretty big range, so you can use it for other stuff on the bike. So that's something you'd want to have.
Right, so I think if I remember correctly off the top of my head, again, off the top of my head, I think it goes as low as like 2 Newton meters and goes all the way up to, I wanna say it's like 15 or 18. So kind of a cool tool to have in your garage. Seal drivers, they have different sizes for different ones. They're usually gonna be about, unless you go really fancy, you're gonna be looking about 20, 25 bucks per driver, unless you go with like Abbey tools or something crazy. Then
Fancy bling.
Yeah, and I mean, but that's what you should expect to pay for some of those tools. I think that's about it as far as special tools. I use tire lever to pull the seals. Dental pick, wire. Dental pick is kind of a cool thing to have. If you don't already have it, it's cool for suspension. You can usually get like dental pick sets, like Park Tool makes one. I can't remember the part number off the top of my head, but I want to say it's about 25, 30 bucks to get that set. And that's about it.
So the last question would be, so people have the seasons. They've got winter season, they've got bike park season. You know, some people don't ride at the bike park. I pity you. But as far as bike park, you know, what's the best time to do this service? Is this something you do before bike park season, after bike park season, or both?
I would do this on my own bike. I would do it every about 6 months with like regular riding, like I would say 2 to 4 times a week. You're probably gonna wanna do this about every 6 months, and you're gonna wanna do a full overhaul of your damper and your air spring and your lower legs, like full entire rebuild. You're gonna wanna do that maybe every 2 or 3 times you do a lower leg. Personally, as far as like a mechanical scale, I would say like on a scale of 1 to 10, as far as technical difficulty, I'd say this is like maybe a 6 or a 7.
Okay, cool. Well, awesome. Well, thank you so much for joining us for this video. And remember, just like the shop says, go fast, get drifty, and don't suck.
And have fun.